Still grooving away. Nothing changed in the 2 weeks we've been off. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Amazing.
It is. We can't help it. It puts a smile on your face. Like,
have I sent you the tragedy cover of that yet?
I don't think so.
Oh, right. I'm going to send you that after this. It's so good. It's like a metal cover of it.
Okay, I'm down for that. Indeed. So, welcome back to the Sith And Scoundrel podcast. We're sorry we've been away for the last couple of weeks. Had a few things going behind the scenes. I mean, I trust your flat is now completely dry after the last couple of weeks.
Life always finds a way. Yeah, that was bad, man. It was just like my toilet started dripping from like the cistern at the back, and I was like, "Oh, this is annoying." I've just like bought a flat, so I couldn't be like, "Oh, landlord," and I was like, "Oh, that's annoying." It's need to go into the office to work, and I got home and it had fixed itself, and that was fine. I didn't fix itself because that's not how it works. It just stopped leaking, and I was like, oh, all right, it's probably like a thing, like whatever. Anyway, the next morning it got a lot worse, and it considered to get worse. And luckily, I have like these plastic 2-pint cups. Well, I don't know why. Well, for drinking like 2 pints, like takeaway places, but yeah, whatever. And I put it under, and it was losing 2 pints every 40 minutes.
Oh wow.
So then I had to get a plumber around, and like it took us 45 minutes to find the stopcocks for the flat. And so I was like, oh, we got to record. And I was just like, oh, God, like, I'm in a swimming pool of toilet water. It wasn't good. Like, it got fixed. Like, the plumber came around and fixed it and everything. But yeah, it's kind of a stressful couple of days.
I can well imagine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But don't know how much it's going to cost me yet. I've not invoiced me, but whatever.
Yeah, that's the scary one.
Yeah, well, apparently legally they've got 30 days to do so. So
yeah,
and hopefully they don't do it. But we'll see.
Yeah, you're halfway through that period, so yeah, we'll see. But
we missed last week because you were up in the irons.
Indeed, I was, and it was it's bloody well worth it. So that was time number 9.
Time number 9. 5 more times you caught up to my Coed kill count.
I'll get there. Essentially.
Yeah. You will. That'll be good.
Well, it depends on how many more tools they do.
Probably a lot.
There'll be a few more. There will be a few more. We'll get there. But yes, so we've been away for a couple of weeks, getting other bits and pieces up behind the scenes, but we are back. And of course, when we last left you, lovely lot, we were talking about coming back and doing our first retrospective, being the Book of Boba Fett. Now, this is probably the one... This is going to be an interesting one for me. Yep. Because, Matt, talk us through your love of Boba Fett over the years. Because this was before we did the show, when we were talking, just you and I as mates, just talking about the show. Obviously, this is the one you're excited about, but also kind of nervous because it's Boba Fett, your favorite character.
Yeah. So, a long time ago, in childhood, far, far away. First time, I was one of those Boba Fett kids. Like, you have Luke running around and Leia and Han, and if you're watching this, you know the characters. I don't need to explain it, man. But there was Boba Fett, and I don't know what it is about Boba Fett. It's this very cool, mysterious kind of gunslinger character. I mean, Empire was the first film I'd ever seen the good guys lose. Like 6, 7 years old, I was like, the good guys haven't won this. This is dark. And like Boba Fett was a genuine threat to the heroes. And he looked great. Like, when I was that age, he just looked cool. And so throughout the years, I was always a big Boba Fett fan. When the prequels came out, I was Jango Fett. I was like, oh, there's another one! And, went nuts. And I remember being very young, playing Star Wars on the school playground, maybe like 16. I was like 7. So, I remember a couple of friends and I were like, oh, let's play Star Wars. I was like, I want to be Han Solo. And I was like, oh, I'll be Boba Fett. I'll go catch you. And tricked him up and his bottom tooth went through his lip. So, I barely remember he went through the bottom lip. And we got right there and came through. We went to the teachers and I got very told off. And I was like, what do you think you were doing? I was like, I was Boba Fett.
He's no good to be dead.
I was like, no good to be dead. Whatever, one of the 5 lines. And yeah, so I've got like a really big legacy with that character of just loving him. Like, you know, my first tattoo was the dented helmet. I've always liked the expanded universe stuff. You know, Dengar finding him from the pit. You've got the whole Prince Virago stuff. You know, I can't remember what that trilogy was. Was it the Bounty Hunter Wars?
It was the Bounty Hunter Wars, yeah.
Bounty Hunter Wars. So, you know, that trilogy was very good. And he was always like this fixture who was always really mysterious. And you never really saw his face. And he was great for it. So fast forward, you know, Force Awakens comes out. And he's absolutely scouring the trailer for anything with that mythosaur crashed on. For anything with that mythosaur crashed. And it was there. It was a banner at Maz's castle, had the mythosaur on. So I'm like, oh, you know, Boba's back. To the point when we did the X-Wing Nationals, I ran Boba. I had to run a fire spray at this point.
Indeed.
You know, I was like, I have to rep. And, you know, so you're looking for these things everywhere. And then it got announced that Chris Miller and Phil Lord were going to do a joint Han Solo Boba Fett project. I don't know if you remember that first round of like the Lucasfilm announcements. They're like this Han Solo / Boba Fett project done by Chris Miller and Phil Lord. And I was like, oh my God, they're the people that like did the Lego movie. This could probably be like really fun, but is there a lot of story to tell between these two characters? And obviously as time went on, they split down into Han and went into Solo and ultimately the Book of Boba Fett. So I've always loved like the Mandalorian thing, and it all stems from that Boba Fett thing and how they built the mythos of the Mandalorians just around Boba Fett. Do you know what I mean? It's always been like, we'll build it around, and it's really interesting from kind of a lore perspective of building a culture around just like what was effectively a background character who just became super iconic. It was mad. You know, full armor.
I mean, that armor has just been something that people have loved for years. I mean, of course, one of the very first popular toys in Canada was the Boba Fett, which they never released the one with the firing rocket because they couldn't for legal reasons, but everyone wanted to fire and stuff. And it just looked cool. And even the clone armor, especially the phase 1 with the proper T-bar, was inspired obviously by the clones. I mean, it was also by the Mandalorians. It's been around for donkeys, of course.
A holiday special, which is the first appearance in it, you know, and like then the Mandalorian comes along and you're watching it and he's got Boba's gun from the holiday special.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of callbacks to it.
I love the fact that the John Favreau went up to George Lucas and went, I made this basically because of you. He went, I had nothing to do with that.
What is it? Yeah, so for like I said, characters. So, you know, I knew when the Mandalorians come around and Legends got an out, I was like, they're going to bring Boba back. You can't have a show called The Mandalorian without having like the Mandalorian start it on. You know, you and I had a lot of conversations about it, and I was like, nah, man, he's going to come back. He's going to come back. And then he did, and it was awesome. And that episode Robert Rodriguez did, where Boba like properly comes back on the hill and he gets his armor and just goes to town on all those stormtroopers. I was just sat there like, my God, this is the Boba Fett I have waited like 25 years or so to see. I was like, this is exactly how I always pictured this character to be. And he's using his knee darts. I've only read about them in like the Dorling Kingsley friggin' encyclopedia books where it's just like, he has knee darts. I was like, that's very cool. But we got to see them in action now. So I was very, very excited to see him come back. And I was very excited to see that Tamara Morrison doing it, because I think he's done a very good job portraying a character who never had a face and only ever had 5 lines for all intents and purposes. So yeah, bringing on the Book of Boba Fett. Like, you know, I didn't care for like Kiddie Boba Fett in the prequels very much. I thought Django was amazing, but I really liked the stuff with Cad Bane in Clone Wars.
Yeah.
I liked basically the escape room. I thought was amazing. What was it, like the cube or something? That's a game.
The box.
The box. The cube. The box. There's the sphere. The cube's a game show. But yeah, it was very cool, and to see him kind of get to that point with it all. So, and the Book of Boba Fett came out, and I was very excited for it. Yeah.
And then
now,
yeah. So we had a little chat. We'll break the series down into various chunks as we look through the first few episodes and things. So this one, we're going to look back at the Tusken arcs kind of to start with. But before we get to it, so yeah, I mean, as we've discussed the show previously, I've always been a Luke fanboy. When I got the Luke corridor scene in Mando season 2, that was my similar. This is the Luke I've waited 25 plus years to see. This is my thing here. So when the show was coming on, obviously we were talking a lot about you kind of got a lot of anticipation, a lot of nerves, a lot of kind of favorite character. Are they going to screw it up, or are they going to make it how you see it? And it's always a personal thing of how you envision it, but how you envisioned it and how they've envisioned it, especially in this particular instance, really didn't line up.
Okay, so I think there's like a weird caveat I want to put in at this point.
Yeah.
Which is something I'm tending to find with a lot of these Disney properties is that they're releasing things without watching what's come before. So the prime example I have of this is WandaVision into Doctor Strange 2.
Yes. Yeah.
Where he openly admitted to the director that oh god, he's really famous. The Evil
Sam
Dead.
Raimi.
Thank you. He openly admitted he didn't watch WandaVision before doing Multiverse of Madness, and I didn't like Multiverse of Madness, and I really like Doctor Strange. And that's because there's such a disconnect between WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness with the character.
Yeah.
Spoilers if you've not seen it, but that film's been out on Disney Plus for ages now, so there's no excuse. But, the whole point of Multiverse of Madness has been like, I want to find my kids. But it undid the heroic sacrifice at the end of WandaVision, and she knew she created those kids from Madness. They were never real to her.
No.
And I was just suddenly like, okay, I liked that they'd put the Young Avengers in, but this isn't the Scarlet Witch we last left.
No.
So the relevance is that with Book of Boba Fett, at the end of Mando season 2, you've got him taking Jabba's throne from Bib Fortuna. He's got Fennec Shand with him. He does that big sit down on the big. I can't see my arms; they're off camera, but he does the big.
Yeah.
The little sit. He does the big sit down on the throne, and he looks like a gangster man, like
as he should.
He's a big pimpin', and you could have been playing some Snoop or something in the background. It would have worked. And he had Fennec Shand with him, and it was cool. So I feel like what we got in the Book of Boba Fett wasn't connected to what we just seen. And so that's the caveat. I don't feel like what we saw in Mando season 2 was reflected particularly well in the first half of the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah. Because the one thing I'll say before we actually get into the show, and before I say anything in terms of, because I have quite a few pluses for the show, not just a load of negatives. I don't hate on the show. There's actually a lot I do like. The one thing I looked back on it is the same as, I think it's a good idea, just poor execution in some aspects, especially the timeline order. We had this when we were talking about Andor, of how the episode should have played out, and they were just kind of put out in the wrong order. Yeah. I felt with what we're about to talk about when it comes to the first couple episodes, especially the Tusken arc, I really do believe if they had left it so the first few episodes were the catch-up and then got into what we had for Mando, I think that would have worked a lot better than the weird flashback, especially considering each flashback, they had to tell you were in a dream flashback with a Baxter by using the green filter all around him, except for him, and it was... Yeah. It
was about as obvious as having Wayne and Garth going across the screen going...
Yeah.
I probably would have preferred that. If it was like a little Max Rebo and Droopy McCall going across the screen.
I mean, to be fair though, with Book of Boba Fett, we get to see Max Rebo get into the gig, which is
30 minutes late, man. That's jazz time.
And the worst part is, it's like even jazz with Star Wars, it's called jizz. It's just even more hilarious.
I didn't know.
Yeah, it's called. The music of Star Wars isn't called jazz; it's jizz wallowing.
30 minutes, man. That's just.
Yep.
I make these decisions. I gotta be honest. I changed my WhatsApp background to Max Rebo by the pit, being like, no. People have pictures of their loved ones. I've got Robot Chicken Max Rebo next to the Sarlacc pit. I love Max Rebo so much.
Well, it's like this is going back a few years ago now, but when it came to the halftime show of Super Bowl 49, I think it was, you literally had someone who was surrounded by a soaking piano. I just sent the picture to you, go, Max Rebo got to the gig.
He got to the gig. I remember about 5-6 years ago when I was really into playing X-Wing, but at the time, is if you won Worlds, you got to design a card.
Yep.
And I was like, I really want to push for Worlds because I want to win it. And then go, what do you want? Like, I want Max Rebo. I just want a Max Rebo upgrade card that says get to the gig. And I was really like, I'm going to put in the hours to get to this point, to have Max Rebo in this game. Obviously never happened. But I want, you know what? Like, did I tell you about the Star Wars vintage toy fair I went to in Fordingbridge like 5, 6, 7 years ago?
Don't think so.
So there's a podcast called Fantha Tracks.
I know Fantha Tracks. I met the guys.
Fantha Tracks. And they, in Fordingbridge Village Hall, they sometimes do a Star Wars vintage toy fair. I bought like a Kenner Stormtrooper for like a $5 because it's the only damn thing I could afford in there. But I was walking around the hall. And next time they do one, you're going to have to come down because you'll explode. Like, honestly, you'll just go nuts for everything in the hall. I walked around and I went to this trader. In the back corner, on this shelf, they had the Return of the Jedi box of the Max Rebo band. And I was like, man, okay. And it had the price on it of 65 quid. And I was like, I will spend 65 quid on the Max Rebo band just to have them on a shelf because I think they're great. And I was just like, oh, right. So that box, you know, the Max Rebo. Like, I'm really interested in it. Does it have all the pieces? And the guy was like, no, mate, it's just a box. I was like, I'm not buying just the box. I just want Max Rebos out of my shelf.
Well, I was gutted at Celebration because they had Max Rebo plushies and they'd all sold out by the time I got there. Or else I would have had a Max Rebo plushie.
Oh, Max Rebo, the Star Wars story.
I mean, they had the entire band, but I just would have had just Max Rebo by himself. That's all I wanted was Max Rebo.
Yeah, they're the best band. Like, do Blues Brothers, but with the Max Rebo band.
Actually, there's a comic coming out, I think it's next month, which is just a one-shot, but it is Max Rebo.
You sent me that. You did send me that. I need to read it. I need it to be like, it's 500 miles, like, to Coruscant. We've got half a cell of fuel, a full pack of death sticks. We're in space and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it. Okay. Oh, this is why
Luke Brothers.
You got like sliced noodles in it and Droopy McCall because they got the best names ever. Droopy McCall. What a name. Droopy McCall, the jizz clarinet.
Yep. What I love though,
Why they don't write things for
Jabba's Palace is the fact that Salacious B. Crumb is literally because someone slurred saying shoelaces.
Oh my god, I love that monkey lizard.
The Quacker Monkey Lizards are awesome. It's one of the popped up Mando. I was like, wait, I see it. That's what I like it.
A whole tree of them as well.
Yeah. But then
what I really like Disney Plus did that Muppets Mayhem series about the Mayhem. And it's incredible. It's really good. You just need that for the Max Rebo band. Still be puppet.
Give me a VH1 behind the music with Max Rebo.
You wouldn't understand what they're saying, but you know it would be the story of Fleetwood Mac.
Right.
And then danger happened. Max Rebo's trunk went too far.
Oh.
He was broke. He had to be a mascot for Space McDonald's. He had to paint us up purple and be known as Grimace.
Somehow he had to feed his spice addiction.
God, spice addiction. Oh, that Max was in a bad place. He couldn't stop taking spice. It starts writing some like epic Pink Floyd level prog stuff, and it's just like spice is taking to bad places. We lost our roots.
No, because there's money for nothing will kick in.
The reunion tour, which I would pay to go to. Okay, that's fun. Yeah. What are we talking about? Book of Boba Fett.
I mean, to be fair though, in that second episode, you do have it when they stop the train. He goes, what is spice? That's what it looks like.
So, like, do you know what? Let's get off the Matt Rebo talk. Max Rebo talk. My God. I need to find a Max Rebo tour T-shirt. I think there is ones in there, but it's like the dates on the back of it are like Alderaan cancelled.
Yeah.
You didn't get to that gig. Back to it. The Tusken arc. I really liked the Tusken arc. I'm going to start getting sidetracked. I really liked the Tusk. I love what they did with the Tuskens. What I really appreciated in the behind the scenes stuff is that they actually hired deaf actors to play the Tuskens. And I know that sounds like a really stupid thing, but there's so many studios and stuff that we use like completely abled people to play like characters with these disabilities.
Yeah.
So when I read that they hired deaf actors to play the Tusken and got them involved in creating the Tusken, like ASL type stuff, I was like, that is a baller move, Disney. You didn't have to do that. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's a similar thing I actually watched recently, the Across the Spider-Verse, and there's the spider in the wheelchair. I absolutely lost my mind at that because it was representation. It was perfect. And in this instance,
you lost your mind at Wheelchair Spider-Man. I thought Dino Rex was amazing.
Oh yeah, look, that's the thing. Like,
I was like,
yeah, I mean, dinosaur using bloody web slingers was awesome. But anyway, off of sliding back onto Boba Fett.
I'm actually wearing my Spider-Punk hoodie, which is really funny. So come up in a Star Wars draft. That's good. Very cool hoodie. Anyway,
but yeah, so they kind of done it a little bit in Mando by they had someone who used ASL to come into the set and kind of develop the language with them, but they went more in depth into it for Boba Fett because of course he actually had a whole tribe with them. And it was so this is the thing, these first two episodes you kind of take out the kind of here and now part of it and go into the flashbacks. What was really cool was the fact that obviously the more that the best warrior was a female, but it wasn't even played as such. It was more just she happens to be the most badass.
She looked very cool. Like I think it's very difficult from what we know from New Hope with the Tusken costumes.
Yeah.
It's kind of a template, isn't it? It's like a copy-paste template. Like, this is how they look, and this is how they will always look. But I feel like what they did with the costuming as well, the costuming to make the leader look like a woman.
Yeah.
I thought was really smart. I think they did very cool things with them.
Yeah, it was tailored. That's all it was. It was just slightly tailored and slightly... There was no sexualization. There was no kind of over the top. It was just a very subtle, here you go, so you can tell. That was all it was done. But even with that, though, you talk about the template, as it were, the individualization on each Tusken. Yes, of course, they had the mask, they had the robes, but each Tusken was different. Like the kid, for example, the kid was one of my favorite parts of that first couple episodes. Partly you get attached for, unfortunately, was going to be a sad reason, but he was fantastic. Again, when you actually get to Boba having done the trance, going off and finding his branch and stuff, when he comes back, the kid literally takes him by the arm as he's just come out of getting all his robes done. You could see the appreciation. And for the characters that are played without facial expressions to show emotion, it's hard to do.
Yeah, and a lot of it's in the vocal grunt and using pitch and keys and stuff to emote. It's very smart. I feel like it's very smart what they've done, and it's probably my favorite thing about the first half of that series is seeing like the community behind the Tusken. Like they've been painted out to be bad guys for so long. Like they ambush Luke and they take Shmi and do all these horrible things, and then you see them in this light, and you're like, they're just. And I had to explain this to someone who watched Book of Boba Fett for the first time. And she was like, I don't know how I feel about this, because I've just watched episode 2, and they did Shmi bad, and I was just like, Tess is Canadian. If you're watching this, hi, but Tess is Canadian, and I was like, man, you know where you're from. What did you do to Indigenous people?
Yeah.
And how did they react? I was like, you have to keep in mind that the Tuscans are native to Tatooine. And the humans there aren't. And they encroach on their territory. So, of course, they're going to act like that. And I think the moment you process that, you go, oh, my God, that's right. And then you've seen them as a community in their spiritualization and almost their fashion and the way they treat each other and greet each other and communicate. And the hounds aren't smiling beasts. They're like good doggos.
Yeah. I mean, the big one for that is when you have Boba Fett, after they've... So we'll get into the whole train thing in a bit because it's fantastic. It's my favorite... Probably my favorite set piece from the Book of Boba Fett. But afterwards, when he sat there, you have the Pike Syndicate who goes, are you going to kill us? Well, depends on how you answer these next few questions. Of course, he's asked about the spice and what a spice looks like. Drops the crate, that's what it looks like. But his whole thing is, you're encroaching on their territory. These lands belong to the Tuscans.
Yeah.
They're just defending themselves. You have come into their territory. You have been picking them off because you're saying you want to defend your trade. Well, actually, no, you're running into them. And he goes, obviously now you're going to go back to the Pike Syndicate. You're going to tell them what I've told you. And, we're going to let you live. Here you go. We're going to give you some water. We're going to give you this, but you're under now the protection of the Tuscans. You have come into our territory or their territory. He doesn't even proclaim to be one at this point. He's just, he is like, you've come in here. You have taken their stuff. You have ruined some of their lives and their livestock. And yet, all they want to do is just be left alone. If you want to run through here, let's do it under an agreement. Let's make sure that everyone is satisfied. And I was actually having this conversation earlier with my sister's other half, talking about human civilization and what's gone on over the years, and natural events and versus human events and things. We'll talk about when the settlers in North America went across.
Bro, every time I've been to your house, the conversation has never been that intelligent. And the time I'm not there, you're like, let's talk about the course of human history.
Well, it's my sister's boyfriend. It's different. The intelligence is the household.
This is like, Baden, sleep in the conservatory. We turned to Beavis and Butthead, but now I'm like, there's eloquent.
Grown up over the years, got old, it's fine.
And I have to go talk to your mum for like a straight conversation. I have to be like, hi, Sue. Kevin and Perry man, where it's like, can I have a jam sandwich? Can I have a jam sandwich, please, Mrs. Pond?
I mean, yeah, it's a thing. What was I talking about?
You're talking about Native Americans.
Yeah, so talking about the fact that the white settlers went across North America, killing all the buffaloes, they went. And they literally wiped out livestock. They wiped out the native tribes. And whilst in Southern America, you have the Spanish who brought disease with them that wiped out the Aztecs and the Incas. And it's a similar thing here of you literally have people who have been there for thousands of years, who know every grain of sand, just try and defend what is to them just a very simple and meager lifestyle. They live off what they can find. They live off the black melons for water. They cultivate the panthers and things, and that's all it is. And it's parodying obviously human nature and what we've done over the years in a very Star Wars manner, which is fantastic to see in comparison to how obviously you went into these bloody flashbacks for the Pax attacks.
I mean, the thing being is, I'm so sick of Tatooine as a setting now, and I've said this many times. I'll say it a million more times. So I think it's very easy to forget that humans aren't native to Tatooine, and that the Tuscans, I'm pretty sure they're the native species. Like,
they are. Tatooine's
the home planet. And I mean, it's a vice versa thing. It's what, just bring it back to like a tenuous link from what we were talking about before. It's why I'm excited to see Killers of the Flower Moon, because it's a similar kind of thing. It's like this reverse lens and all this kind of stuff. But I feel like the Tuscans were done super well, and I think it's really easy just to forget that Tatooine is there, and the reason they're hostile is because people are encroaching, and it's why I really liked the Cobb Vamp stuff.
Yeah,
because he was amazing, and he was great, and he was respecting them, which was really interesting, and he was in that thing of just let the great dragon pass. Just let it go. It's a problem, but don't understand. And he had that understanding. So that was my favorite thing about the first part. Really, about Book of Boba Fett was the way they embellished that culture, and it was behind the scenes look of people we've only known as not even really baddies, but as like first end of level boss.
It's misunderstood. That's what it's misunderstood people.
I love that they did that, and I love that they did that such a role, and I love that you actually started to like them. And as you go back through and you rewatch Star Wars, and you're like, oh, they are not bad people. Even in Clone Wars, they were done as let's just go shoot pod racers.
Yeah, but even in that, though, in Book of Boba Fett, they talk about the fact that there are different tribes who are some have resorted to more, not even more self-defense, it's more actually being more antagonistic because they're fed up of what's happening. But not, it paints a very important lesson to don't tar everyone with the same brush. It's very much just because one people have to act this way or minorities act this way doesn't mean everybody does.
Man, I'm telling you though, if you're at home and you're like asleep, and out of nowhere, a bunch of kids turn up on mini motorbikes and start doing laps of your flat or your house, you're gonna want to shoot them.
Yeah,
and that's what the Bunta Eve Classic is. They're just probably trying to be peaceful and watch Tuscan TV or whatever. Like Tuscan Come Dine With Me, I imagine, is probably what they're doing. And 6. Thought the black melon was a bit undercooked, and I don't know what they did with the crate dragon meat, but it sure wasn't seasoned. Give them a 6. They're probably watching like Tuscan Come Dine With Me or Tuscan Deal or No Deal. I hear it's very popular on their Flintstones TV. Basically, they don't have rock and have a bird in the edge of it, but they watch things like Deal or No Deal. That's really difficult for Tuscan. Which box do you want? 111, Space 11. Yeah, they're just chilling, and then like some kids start like boy racers turn up. Like I'd reacted the same way.
Yeah.
So
we were young and ignorant once, and now we need sleep.
yeah, and that's what it is. So that was very cool. You mentioned the structuring, and I feel like the structuring was very strange. I don't think we needed 3 episodes of flashbacks with an episode that Boba is in his own coma. He's in a coma for an episode of his own TV show, which I thought was ridiculous.
Yeah.
The way I kind of thought about it is that the way I tend to watch the Star Wars films, and I don't know, I read this order online somewhere, and it's the only order I follow now, is I will watch 4, I'll start with A New Hope, I'll watch 2 and 3, and then I'll watch 5, 6.
That's the machete order, yeah.
The machete order, yeah, because you watch A New Hope, and then you get like flashbacks for 2 films, and then you carry on with the story. And I feel like Book of Boba Fett should have been like story, episode of flashback and context, back to the story. I don't think we need to spend as long in flashbacks as we did, because I don't care that he was taught to fight with a gaffy stick.
No. Although, that being said, the ending of that, when they are all around the campfire, they had the ceremonial kind of fight with the drums, the music, I think that was really cool to see.
It was cool. But this is Boba Fett. This is the scariest man in the galaxy. This is Darth Vader had to tell Boba Fett to calm down.
Yeah, no disintegrations.
Yeah, he singles them out, man. He's on the bridge being like, oh, this is all very important. And you pack it in. Right? So the scariest man in the galaxy has to tell this dude to calm down. And you're telling me that he has no experience in hand-to-hand combat, and he has to be taught to use a gaffy stick? Yeah, that is a symbolic thing. Didn't need it, because I would just, if Boba just turned up, wailing on people with a gaffer stick, wailing on people with gaffer tape, I would just be like, yeah, I accept this. This makes sense. He has spent time on Tatooine with the Tuscans. It makes sense that he would do that. I don't need 3 episodes telling me that.
No.
So, and it's the Solo paradox, as I just coined it. That's as I just like to call it. But no, I've just thought of it. And my problem with Solo is I love Solo. I think it's a great film, and I know it's controversial. I find this a very enjoyable watch, purely because of Donald Glover, to be honest. But I felt what was wrong with that was they needed to give a backstory to every little thing that Han has. Here's a backstory to his blaster. I have never needed a backstory to that before. I just accept it as a gun.
Yeah.
Here's a backstory to these dice. They don't need a backstory because originally in Legends, those are the dice he won the Falcon with. But in this, he has them at the beginning. I was like, I don't need this. I'm just happy to accept that he has these gold dice that have never been highlighted before. No one's ever made a big deal of, look at these gold dice. They've just kind of always been there, and no one's ever questioned. So the Solo paradox is, let's give an intro or a story to every bit of equipment this character has. And it's like, it's not necessary. And I feel like that's kind of what they did with Boba. Like they even did it with his armor in The Mandalorian.
I like that. It's more of the
and I get his Mando being really suspicious and all those, and I understood it, but I don't think it was necessary to give a story for that. So yeah, I felt with the gaffy stick, they put a story to it. It wasn't necessary to put a story to it because sometimes I feel that with the Disney properties, the Star Wars and Marvel, they do have a tendency to treat the audience like they're stupid and don't have an ability just to connect to gods. They're catering for people like me who can't talk. Connect two dots in a story and just like suspend disbelief and accept something.
Yeah.
And they really have to drive a lot of points home very, very hard to be like, look how obvious this is. And it's like, no, man, like your audience is smart. People can put 2 and 2 together and go, oh, Boba Fett, bounty hunter, he can use a stick.
Yeah.
Except, oh, Han Solo, he has a blaster. Right.
Yeah. Although I did like the chain code bit in Mando, just kind of put into bed a lot of people's whole, oh, Boba Fett's not a Mandalorian versus is a Mandalorian versus old Jango Fett. That was kind of cool. And to be fair, it's a neat little bit of story. It didn't have to be there. I enjoyed it, but I know exactly what you mean.
It wasn't against the flow and it wasn't jarring, but people have spent too long caring about whether he's an actual Mandalorian or not. And my counter argument to that 4 years has just been, he is like the Mandalorian, man. Yeah. They wouldn't exist. And it's just to go back to the start of the episode, they wouldn't exist without him. You know, oh, he's not a real Mandalorian. Well, yes, he is, because he is. Like, let's not fight about it.
The whole him escaping from the Sarlacc pit, that's a different argument because did you need to see it or not?
How familiar are you with Parks and Recreation?
Not very.
Okay, I love it. It's very, very good, and I'd watch it. But in one of the latest seasons, and this was years before, like, this is just before they were doing Force Awakens, I think. Yeah. And there's an episode where they're in this big like political debate, and Patton Oswalt turns up and does a filibuster where he just doesn't stop talking so they can't pass the vote. And he starts with, I've got these ideas for the new Star Wars trilogy. Camera opens on the Dune Sea, on the mouth of the Naldez Sarlacc, and out comes the Beskar gloved hand of Boba Fett. And someone's taken that. I've got it saved on my phone. I'm going to send it to you after this. Someone's taken that speech and they've overlaid that bit from Book of Boba Fett, and it's the same.
Yeah.
And this was said as a joke before Force Awakens, and it's just weird how it matched up. Did we need to see him escape the Sarlacc? Yes. Because people that kind of only really know the films needed a reason for him to be back. So this is kind of the difference, is that if he just appeared, people would be going, oh,
why?
He's dead though, right?
Yeah.
That makes no sense. So I do feel like that needed to be seen, because the last time we saw him, he fell into it and was dead. Like, just gone. And he's been presumed dead for 40 years or whatever.
Yeah.
40 years? Yeah. Jedi's 40 years old. 43. It's been 43 years.
For Jedi, 40 years this year.
Yeah, so he's been presumed dead for 40 years. So I think that needed to be seen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there would be too much, I think, speculation on how did he do it. I just say, every time takes me back to that Robot Chicken, Boba's back! Boba's got a lightsaber now! Red, blue, purple, rain! Always takes me back to that, which is effectively what happened in The Mandalorian when he took out all the stormtroopers, to be honest. But in fact, again, I don't know if you saw that doing the rounds online. They took the footage of him back in the armor and put the audio from that Robot Chicken bit to it. And I was like, this is just what I wanted it to be. This is fantastic. And then, like, as a fan of the character, I was like, yeah, this is just what I wanted. I wanted some big, grand, like, kick-ass Hollywood blockbuster, explosion-ridden entrance. Maybe with, like, the Power Rangers theme tune in the background. Give me some, like, shredcore or something as he's doing it. And more fireworks. So I felt the Sarlacc stuff was in it. Now, what I remiss and what I wish happened was they stuck with the legends that it's Dengar who found him. Because that is another character I'd like to see brought to the forefront. Now, Dengar, played by Simon Pegg.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, could do it. Or maybe Nick Frost or something. I don't know. Or Ray Winston. But
Dengar, they kind of had themselves painted into a little bit of a corner because of the Aftermath trilogy. So in the Aftermath trilogy, you meet Cobb Vanth, who we do meet in Mando, and he obviously has Boba Fett's armor, and his armor was taken by Jawas. So you kind of get painted into a little bit of a corner. Like, they had to explain. But they could have had Dengar discover him without the armor. It could have just been very much the Jawas had taken the armor and just buggered off.
Dude, they could have had Dengar discover him, Boba going, I don't want to be found, and him going, okay, I'll sell your armor to Jawas to give you credits to get off of this Star Stone.
Yeah.
You know, they could have done anything. But that is wanting, like, it's inherently one of my problems with Book of Boba Fett, to be honest, the overarching ones, is he goes from being like a really cold-blooded mercenary to like a benevolent leader for no real reason. You know, when he's running Mos Eisley and he's just like, in my mind, when I picture it, so I'm just like, here, money for everyone. You know, when you kind of, in Assassin's Creed 2, when you walk down the street and throw money and all the peasants jump at it. Kind of like he feels like a very graceful, very kind of fair.
Yeah, so when he turns up to the cantina, he's like, well, sorry, where was your listen? I didn't expect you to be carried in here. Like, no, I choose to walk.
Yeah.
When they walk out of it, it's very much I want to be, ruled by respect, not by fear.
But that doesn't feel like the Boba Fett I've spent all this time reading about.
No.
Again, this is the man that Vader had to tell to calm down. This is the man.
When you read War of the Bounty Hunters, when you actually read the comics, the new canon ones, Boba Fett is a badass. He takes on Luke. Like, here's the Boba Fett you want him to be.
He is. Vader knows about him and calls on him to go catch Han. Not only that, he catches Han.
Yeah.
Dude is scary. And so when Force Awakens came out and you had the trooper.
Yeah.
Thrown up against Finn. Aaron Dembski Bowden. Thank you. Aaron Dembski Bowden wrote this great blog post, a Black Library author. For those who don't know, I know you know who ADB is. You've got the best book signed by him ever.
It's like, thanks for not disturbing my lunch.
He's great. And he wrote this blog post because a lot of people were expecting that new trooper to be the new Boba, and it was this big thing about why it wouldn't work. And he was just like, because Boba was like a one-shot thing, but this guy was an actual threat to the main cast.
Yeah.
No, he caught Han Solo, so you've got this looming threat, and he's been a looming threat for a long time. In the comic where he turns up with Black Chrysanthemum.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, man's got a Wookiee now. And he's got the Wookiee braids on the armor, and he's always been like, in my mind, I think, at least, and I'm definitely in the original trilogy, and you look at his arc in the Clone Wars and the prequel trilogy as well, he's not been raised to be this caring, charismatic, benevolent leader. Like
he has in some aspects. In Clone Wars, Aurra Sing has to do his dirty work because he doesn't want to. He has an edge to him of kind of caring when he maybe shouldn't, or maybe needs to be a bit more callous. So he's had the edge, but it's never something that's been at the forefront. It's been kind of a back of mind. Whereas this has been very much I'm too old for this shit. That's basically his whole shtick.
Yeah, I feel like, especially seeing everything with Gar Saxon and Pre Vizsla in The Mandalorian and the Death Watch stuff, I feel like they could have made Boba more cutthroat like them. And I would have been 100% in support of this cutthroat guy, tyrant ruling by fear in the most wretched hive of scum of villainy in the galaxy. Tatooine's not a good place.
No.
The Jawas keep stealing Obi-Wan's stuff, paying it and selling it, but it doesn't pay it. They just try to sell it back to him.
Yeah.
Which I loved. Which is my favorite.
It's still the best part of that is cleaning cost extra.
Yeah, we will touch on Kenobi at some point, but I just thought I would be remiss in my duties talking about Tatooine to not mention the Jawas who steal things and try to sell them back.
Yeah.
And we're like, this is the kind of place it is. And the dude was taken in by Tuskens who are incredibly hostile to outside people. And that hostility could have really reinforced him. And to a degree, when he meets Bo-Katan, he's pretty hostile towards them.
Yeah.
That was
careful, Princess. I might be the last you ever hear. That line is Boba Fett.
Yeah, and that's obviously Mandalorian season 2. So he's still he's a very spiky kind of character. So that was one of the things that didn't sit well with me tonally in that series was the daimyo aspect. Was that kind of daimyo aspect, I think. I would much rather he was trying to be a bounty hunter again.
Yeah.
And that's when he clashed with Cad Bane, who, by the way, looked magnificent in Book of Boba Fett.
God, yeah. I
saw him and didn't even know who he properly was at that point and was just like, oh my God, who is this? He looked incredible.
And you have Corey Burton back doing the voice.
Yeah, I remember you saying, and I just don't feel like we got enough of him in the Book of Boba Fett. And I get they had to be on Tatooine.
That Cad Bane was more Boba than Boba?
I feel like he was, and I think that's a very fair point. I feel like he was more Boba than Boba because these guys dirty deeds done dirt cheap. These are people who do bad things for money.
Yeah.
Boba disintegrates people when he's younger. They do bad things for their credits, and I just feel like I get why it was on Tatooine, but I also don't get why it was on Tatooine because why not have Boba and Fennec Shand going off to go hunt bounties? And at one point, they pick up a bounty that's out on Mando, and that's how they cross paths.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I've got a bounty on you. Well, I need to do this.
We could have gone to the Nal Hutter. We could have had the Hutt cartel properly. We've only had it. That would have been cool.
Be great. And, give us more Cad Bane and give us, especially after Clone Wars, give us that Cad and Boba relationship X amount of years on. And... I feel like they could have done. Do you know what? I feel like they could have done a lot more space piracy, and space bounty hunting, and it just doesn't feel right to me that Boba put down roots somewhere. And maybe if it was a journey about after spending time with the Tuskens, he was on a journey to find out more about his own heritage.
Yeah,
and he's got to pay his way somehow. Bounty hunters aren't bad people. That's how we first met Din.
Yeah,
so. He could have gone on a bounty. He wouldn't even have to get a bounty on Din, dude. He could have got on a bounty and Din went for the same thing. And they were like, you know what? It's probably better that we kind of work together. This is a big target. Who is it? It's X the Hutt.
Yeah.
I have a history with the Hutts. They still owe me money.
Yeah.
Mando, I need to do this to get a ship to go find the kid.
Yeah.
Let's go together. But now Cad Bane's also going for the same target. So they're racing against each other to get the target.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And the problem is, again, put us earlier, the problem of the not watching what's come before, because also in Mando, you have Boba Fett destroy TIE fighters with a seismic charge, which is one of the most badass things and also one of the greatest sound Star Wars has ever made.
Yeah.
And he's more Boba Fett in his he's more Boba Fett outside his own show, which is the problem. Because when you have these first few episodes, the Tusken arc itself versus the rest of those few episodes, the actual He gets the absolute crap beaten out of him by assassins and has to go take me back to a Bacta tank.
Oh, that was it. That's what I was thinking, wasn't it? Oh no, a mild inconvenience. Take me back to my waterhole.
Yeah, take me back to have another flashback, which is like, but this is a Boba. Boba Fett would literally kill every single one of them, bar one to get the information needs, then kill him, and then go have a soak. Not the other way around.
Inconvenience.
Also,
yeah, they took him to the Bacta tank a lot.
Yeah, because it was for storytelling purposes. When if you'd just done the how he got out of the Sarlacc pit and how he got his armor back, ish kind of story arc, and then gone into the rest of it, that would have been fine.
Or they could have taken a beat from The Simpsons, right? And this is a genuine thing. It's you can start a sentence like that, seriously. But you know the episode with the fox where Homer eats the really hot chili and goes on that trip with the fox and goes through that story. I could have done something with Boba and the spirituality of Tuscans, man.
Yeah.
We could have eaten like some sort of desert chili, or we could have, I guess we wouldn't see him take spice, but he could have done something like that to send him on this journey, this mental journey to remember where he's come from or what he's gone through and where he's been. Not go, I'm not on about like Boba Fett needs to snort a line of spice off a Twi'lek's back, do a Scarface by shooting his gun in the air. He doesn't have to go full spice face. But I feel like they could have led it to a spiritual journey. Just constantly taking him back to tank. You're weakening his ability against Din Djarin's. Yeah. And this is the dude who caught Han Solo. He's great. But I feel like you're kind of racing Boba Fett is the OG and Din Djarin is the new shiny, quite literally. Yeah. And you kind of having to power level them. You're going, oh, and I get it, Boba's old, but he just like goes to the back to tank.
Yeah, but the things that comes with age is also experience.
There's a great line in The Gentleman, which is old boys we fight in the grey. And I was like, yeah. You know, Boba could have the attitude of just like, I didn't live this long by not knowing what I'm doing. Yeah. You know, they could have made him a lot more callous. And I almost feel to a little bit that Cobb Vanth was a better Boba Fett than Boba Fett was in the Book of Boba Fett. Yep. You know, I couldn't help even that. He felt more the thing. Yeah, I don't know. When are we going to talk about the weird Scooter gang?
Well, we'll get onto that in the next one for sure. But so this is the thing. We're obviously looking back as a retrospective on Book of Boba Fett. These first few episodes, you get some good, some bad. A lot of it is kind of the problem I have with it is that, as I said, the storytelling is right. It was just in the wrong order, and just a few of the beats needed changing. But there's some genuinely awesome moments, like the trance going and getting the stick, the whole him getting the branch, looking at the Sarlacc, all the rest of it, that kind of thing. That was really cool. It was really well done. The actual story of how he got out of the Sarlacc pit was something that did need to be told. We talk about what is necessary versus what isn't. Well, actually, is one of the things people wonder about all these years. It didn't take long. It didn't have to take long. It was a very simple, you think it was a convenient stormtrooper that happened to have some oxygen left somehow. That was the only part of it that didn't make any sense. The rest of it was like, this is really cool, and now we know how he got out, and now we know what goes on.
It needs to be shown because it was such an iconic thing from Legends, and it was such a big moment for the character that we know. Yeah, and it was a killer moment, dude. It was cool, like, and I feel like it had to be shown. Can you imagine, like, how did that happen? And it's in a similar way, like. Spider-Man, how we don't see the death of Uncle Ben anymore because it's kind of pointless. Yeah. Because it's on the consciousness of the general, movie-going public. Yeah. Feel like, they wouldn't have just been able to go Boba's back because he needed his Uncle Ben moment, so to speak. And they don't need to retell that now because it's happened and been explained, done away. Yeah. And you're right. It only needs to take 5 minutes. It didn't need to be a long, drawn-out kind of thing.
And it didn't. It was a actually genuine, really succinct little just section. Here you go. Here's what happened. Done. Yeah. And it was done really well. And the thing is, though, the other thing I like, which we get onto when we talk about the show later on, is the biker gang. because it sets up what's to come without you knowing it. So it's done subtly, but done quite well. I mean,
you know about the multicolored kids?
no, the actual weak ways.
Oh, okay, that's fine. When you said biker gang, I was just like, oh god, don't say good things about them. They were terrible.
No, we'll get onto that next week of how much I detest that scene. And
spoiler alert: Space Mod suck.
Oh, don't. It fitted. They'd fit Coruscant a lot better than Tatooine, but we'll get onto that point next week. No, the actual weak ways, the actual like the dive bar, that kind of whole thing where you see them stealing the wars and the symbols. It sets up what's to come later on when Boba Fett has another one of his actual Boba Fett moments by going and gunning them all down.
You know when you get that really good scene of Cara Dune and she walks into that den and takes out that gang?
Yeah.
Yeah, Boba should have done it.
Yeah.
At some point, he should have just walked into a room and just cleared it.
Yeah.
Of just being Boba, just like clean this room. And like, I know it sounds like, from my perspective, of the sheer amount of bias I have, which is just like, no, he needs to be really OP. He doesn't need to be OP. He just needs to live up to the reputation that Lucasfilm have given him for 40 years.
Yeah. Let alone fans.
It's not really a fan thing. Everyone loves him because of the reputation that the people that created Star Wars have given this character, the legacy they've given this character. There's a reason he's popular, because he does cool things.
5 lines. One of them was, "As you wish," to Vader saying no disintegrations, and "He's no good to me dead."
Yeah, he's no good to me dead. And my favorite one that everyone glosses over is that he refers to Han as Captain Solo.
Yeah,
which is
and
it's cool because it's like, you wouldn't call him captain if he didn't have respect for him as an opponent.
God, no, that is pure respect.
And he's just like, yeah, he almost bested me. Put the captain away, and he wouldn't be, or put Solo away or whatever. But he recognizes him captain, so there's like respect, and like I think the way they wrote Boba for a very long time was effectively making him Predator in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's really out there as a thing. Not like turning invisible and doing all those things, but they've kind of made that equivalent of that kind of character. Predator has respect. He goes to find the biggest game on planet because it's a respect thing, it's a rite of passage. And I really feel like they could have lent into that, because you don't now see Predator 40 years on kind of being a nice leader and every now and again having to go to the hospital.
No.
Because he got slightly inconvenienced or someone stabbed him in the leg. No. He screams at them, finishes it off, then sorts himself out. I feel there's some good stuff in it, but it really kind of solidified to me, and I think as a fan of the character, then it's the same almost feelings I have about Andor, is that I don't feel like he's a leading character. I feel like he's a good side character. I feel like he is a good antithesis to the Empire with all their glossy white and very clean colors, and suddenly you got this guy in like ragged armor with dents all over it. He's clearly got a story to tell. Man, and something else that didn't happen, which I wanted to happen, and it's the same conversation I wanted to happen with Lando. It didn't happen, obviously, but for Boba and Lando, what I've really wanted from when we've seen them again is for them to have found out that Han is dead.
Yeah.
And for, obviously the Captain Solo's heart's back to the Captain Solo thing, to be turning around and kind of, he finds out like his greatest nemesis or whatever is dead. It's probably a thing that he's going to have a reaction to, and he never really finds out. And like his famous thing was hunting.
Well, to be fair, at this point, Han's alive.
Of course he is, yeah. But then again, they don't bring up Han, and you'd think that someone like Boba Fett, how long was he in the Sarlacc for?
Quite a while, a few years.
Yeah, he doesn't mention the guy who knocked him into the Sarlacc pit once.
No, not in this part. No, and you'd think he'd want revenge.
It's not like he gets knocked in and then goes, you know what? I forgive him for being in the stomach of this damn beast for so long.
Yeah.
He'd be like, where is he? Like, but then the Boba Fett we got given would be like, where's Han? Go and find him, and just be like, say sorry. He'd be like, apologize to me immediately. And
no, he just walk up to him and go, I forgive you.
Yeah. I forgive you for what you did to me. I'm a different man. The Tuscans taught me the ways of forgiveness. What do you mean the Tuscans taught you forgiveness? The people that shoot pod racers? the people who club the kid around the head? They taught me forgiveness. What? That's the moment we would have got. But yeah, again, like you'd think he'd come out of the Sarlacc angry.
Yeah.
And then the hostile people of Tatooine.
He came out partly digested. You didn't think they'll put a crimp in your day.
He did look more like Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool than Ryan Reynolds looked like Wade Wilson. Like Boba Fett looked like a sack of porridge, and whoever did the color balancing on those costumes probably needs to have a think about what they did, because they're really washed out skin tone with the really washed out robes. He did look like Deadpool. He looked like Christian Bale was Gore the God Butcher in Love and Thunder. How he's like all one color, pretty much.
Yep. Yeah. Monochromatic.
There should have been some distinguishing difference between the skin tone and the robes.
There was. It was called the horrible green filter they put all around him to let you know you're in a flashback. That was it.
But I felt it makes me uncomfortable to see like the gifts of Black Panther and stuff, because I'm like, guys, why did you just not break up this color palette? Because it's quite hard to read.
Yeah.
And he looks albino.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get stomach acid's probably not a nice thing, but he looks albino, and it's weird because he's not. Yeah. So that's really the first half. First half of it, as a fan, just to conclude, because I just realized we've gone into the hour mark here.
Indeed,
as I've kind of ranted about things for a while. First half, I feel like the Tuscan stuff was really cool. I think there was too much emphasis put on origins for things I could just accept as a person. And as a fan, I could just accept these things in like assumed knowledge. And I feel like there's a lot of mischaracterization, not only compared to the original trilogy and Legends, but also compared to Mandalorian Season 2. But that is my thoughts up to this point.
Indeed. Well, I'm interested to see where we're going to go for next. Next week, we'll continue. Matt and I have a little chat about which section we're going to focus on next few episodes, but we'll come back to you on that. We will see you same time next week. Looking forward to getting more into it, especially there's a couple of story beats I'm looking forward to. This one I wanted to talk about when we had our discussion beforehand was the whole Tusken arc, because I found it actually quite fascinating. And in today, whilst I was doing bits and pieces for work, I was actually watching the first two episodes. It reminded me of some of the bits I did like. So I'm looking forward to seeing again, just kind of fresh eyes, as it were, for this show. Because when I first watched it, it was a bit of a jar. So this time around, okay, I appreciate it a bit more. Still bits I don't like, but yeah, interesting to see. But yes, we will be back same time next week. Thank you all for joining. We shall see you then. Good night.
Bye.